In this video, we're revisiting my AI wildlife monitoring system. So it's been a few months since I posted my first video on this, and there's been quite a few updates since then. I've been posting some short form content on various social media platforms, just updating my progress with this. I haven't really had time, unfortunately, to post a full length video, but now I think I'm at a stage where I've got enough to actually put something together. So if you've been following along with that, you'll know there's been quite a few updates since my previous first prototype, and I've also been in contact with a lot of you discussing what you would use something like this for. I've even been in contact with some ecologists who might be interested in using something like this for their projects. So it's been really great to hear some feedback on this, so thanks to everyone for helping me out with that. Since the previous video as well, I've actually traveled to New South Wales to help some ecologists on one of their projects doing bat population studies. So they were running a capture-recapture program in order to estimate the population density for some Australian microbats. So I got to hang out with them for a few days, learn about what they do with the bats and some other species, and talk to them about technology like this to see what sort of technology they use and what else we could do. So one interesting thing from that was that for bats and birds, they actually commonly use audio or call data in order to identify species in the area. Not so much cameras, though they do use cameras in some situations, but audio kind of makes sense. You know, it's kind of hard to know where to point your camera if you're looking at something that's flying through the air. Audio, you can collect data from all around you. So that might be an interesting direction to go in the future with this. So what else has happened? My PhD thesis finally got certified, ratified, I don't know, signified. Well, there was a whole bunch of steps to do that. So technically I now am Dr. Luke. Was it worth it? We'll see. In any case, let's see what changes I've made and what we've done here. So one of the biggest changes you'll note is that I've switched now to using the Raspberry Pi and the Raspberry Pi ecosystem. In that first video, I talked about the limitations of that system, you know, power consumption, lack of compute. I was using quite an old Jetson model. Since that video, Raspberry Pi has actually come out with a couple of bits of AI hardware that is really useful for what I'm doing here, that being both the AI hat or the Halo accelerator, and also the Raspberry Pi AI camera, which actually uses that Sony IMX500 intelligent image sensor that I talked about. So it's a bit of a coincidence that they happened to produce this right after I talked about it in that video. So with that, I've also switched to the Raspberry Pi 5, which is needed for that AI hat. In some of those shorts, I talked about why I'm not using the AI camera for now. I am limited by the resolution that I can put through the model, even though this is a high resolution camera. The model on here can only run at 640 by 640, whereas I can kind of choose any resolution for this one. I'm still using the high quality camera, same as before, so that gives me access to potentially up to 4K resolution images. You can see now the whole design is a lot smaller and more compact. I've got this UPS here for the Raspberry Pi 5 that I've got off the shelf. One of the issues with the old design was that I had all this custom wiring and soldering there that was very messy. Things were coming out and I wanted something that was compact and sort of clicked together nicely. I didn't really have time to do a custom PCB yet, so I just wanted to see what I could get off the shelf. There's quite a few of these UPSs, battery power supplies, solar power supplies. So one big issue I'm having with a lot of those is that none of them really do everything I want. And this is kind of the issues with using off-the-shelf components. The AI hat here, you can see it actually mounts to the top of the Raspberry Pi, but it also blocks the GPIO pins for the Raspberry Pi, meaning I can't put any more hats on top. So a lot of the UPSs or power supplies for the Raspberry Pi that might be more suitable than what I'm using here can't use because they mount on the top. And I chose this UPS, which is just some generic sort of Raspberry Pi 5 UPS because it has batteries in the back, and also the Raspberry Pi mounts on top and it has a DC supply input and some output 5-volt power as well that I can run my fan with. And while this does have some basic battery monitoring, it doesn't monitor power consumption or charge power from the solar panel. And it also can't wake up the Raspberry Pi. And as I've mentioned in some of those shorts, for some reason it has the feature that when the Raspberry Pi shuts down, the buck converter that supplies the Raspberry Pi with power also shuts down. So it means that the Raspberry Pi 5, which is the first Raspberry Pi to have a real-time clock and can reboot itself from shutdown after a period of time, can't do that because once it shuts down, it loses power. So the only way to wake it up is to either manually press the button or disconnect and reconnect the DC power supply to charge the thing, which in my case comes from the solar panel that I'm feeding via this little buck converter here just to keep it regulated at 12 volts. The solar panel can go up to past 20 volts and the DC input can't handle that. So I just got that there to regulate that. So the current operation is that just after sunset, the Raspberry Pi shuts itself down and I'm currently relying on the sun to come out in the morning, start supplying enough power that this buck converter switches on and start supplying a charge current so the whole thing boots up. And at the moment it's summer here in Australia, so that actually kind of works reliably and it's running running from like 6:30 to 9 o'clock at night, but obviously in a lot of situations that's just not going to cut it. And so I'm still working on trying to come up with something either off the shelf or potentially custom, as I'll talk about soon, that actually kind of solves all my problems. So a big part of the project that I've been working on since the last video is actually getting my own custom trained model to run on this hardware. Training the Yolo model itself isn't that difficult. The difficult parts are actually collecting and labeling the data. So I've been trying to work on some automated ways to collect the data for the individual species. I'm still going with birds at the moment just because it's easy to get data images of the birds. I won't go into too much detail about how I'm doing that here now, but at the moment I'm using the GBIF sort of global database repository that has basically a bunch of URLs for specific species that you can use their API and download images from that. And so I'm organizing that via bird species, and then I'm using an off-the-shelf zero-shot object detector model. I played around with Dino. I'm currently now using Owl, Open World, Locator, or something like that. These models are basically text conditional object detectors. So you can put your image in with a caption like bird or a picture of a bird, and it will produce your bounding box for that bird. Now you might be thinking, why don't you just deploy that? Well, like a lot of these zero-shot models, these models tend to be like a jack of all trades, master of none. So they can't actually tell the difference between bird species, but they can identify a bird. So I'm currently just relying on that GBIF database and hoping that all the birds of that species that I downloaded and put in that directory only contain birds of that species. It doesn't, and then just any bird I detect in that is going to be a bird of that species. It's not perfect, but it works okay, and I'm kind of working on some other tricks as well. In order to train the Yolo model, I'm just using Ultralytics at the moment. A lot of the demos for this AI accelerator and this Raspberry Pi AI camera use Ultralytics models, so it's just really quick and easy to do that. You don't technically need to use those, but at the moment I'm relying on them. I really want to put together a tutorial on how you actually export and use your own trained model for both the AI camera and the AI hat, because there isn't really a lot out there, and from what I can tell, a lot of people are having difficulty with that. The AI camera is actually pretty straightforward, especially if you're just using the Yolo V8N from Ultralytics. Basically exports it straight into a format that you can put on your Raspberry Pi and convert. But for other custom models, it's a bit more difficult. And for the actual Halo accelerator, it just seems unnecessarily difficult. This company seems to be a sort of hardware company that hasn't really spent too much time working on their software. Their Dataflow compiler, which is what you use to compile and export the model for the actual hardware, I think it only got released like mid last year, even though they've been selling the chips for ages. Up until then, you just had to use their trained models. So at the moment, it's a bit weird, and I have worked out a sort of reliable pipeline. So let me know if you want that tutorial video. I might just make it anyway, because I think a lot of people would find that useful. So the current model I've got on here can detect and identify 30 common bird species that we've got here in Victoria, and it's processing a resolution of 640 by 1280, so that's height width, and this thing can easily run that at 30 frames a second while only using about 6 watts of power, but I'm actually only running it at 5 frames a second, and so it's using much less than 5, maybe 4 to 5 watts of power, which is pretty good, especially for a model of this size. So I'm currently playing around with the models and the software and how I'm doing certain things, but I've currently got it set up with the solar panel as well. I've made a new mount that's just a ground spike that just sticks into the ground. That big heavy umbrella stand was just way too cumbersome to try and haul around, so this new design is much easier and I can kind of put it in more locations. But as I mentioned, there's still work to be done. There's still no LoRa or long range communications, which is kind of one of the main features I wanted to include in this. And again, it's been difficult to incorporate that because a lot of the Raspberry Pi hats sit on top of the Raspberry Pi, which I just can't use here, and I didn't really want to hack around tacking on solder wires and everything to a module. So I've kind of put that on hold for now. So the next grand step potentially is to design and create a custom PCB that not only does the power supply, the battery management, the solar charging with proper solar charging, it has a microcontroller on board to manage the actual shutdown and reboot of the Raspberry Pi correctly, and also has allowances for a LoRa module or potentially even 4G LTE to transmit any detections that have occurred. And there are also other features I'd like to include, like a proper PWM controller for the fan, and some additional switchable outputs to control things like lights and motors and things that you might want to use. So that power supply PCB, potentially also with the audio classification, where they usually have like a grid of microphones that all are recording, and you might want to do something like a mesh network of microphones in a single compute hub. I foresee some PCB design in my future. Luckily for me, All PCB has agreed to sign on to be our PCB sponsor. So All PCB will handle all of your PCB manufacturing and assembly needs. All you need to do is upload your Gerbil files, choose the number of layers. So thanks to All PCB, you can check them out in the links in the description. If you think you're interested in having that PCB power supply with communications for the Raspberry Pi in order to build your own edge compute device, let me know. I'm interested to see who else might be interested in wanting something like this, and who knows, we might develop it into a product that we can actually sell to people who are interested. In any case, that's all I've got for you for this video today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay tuned for more. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.